speaker tonight, Christopher Fales. It has been an honor getting to know Christopher over the last year. We met at monthly events through a group called the Bare Bones Movement about a year ago. Now we're in a Bible study together, so we see each other almost every week. Christopher always articulates himself very well. I actually heard him speak at Bare Bones and was like, hey, can you come talk at Cornerstone? Like, you're awesome. And the room, oftentimes when he starts to speak, it quiets down because they know that he's about to give some golden nuggets of wisdom. They're like, gotta listen. So Christopher graduated from Taylor University in 2015 with a degree in biology. He is now currently working with lab mice and rats at Envigo. So I want to now welcome Christopher to the stage to share his story with you all.
I'm honored to address this assembly of the United Nations. The many watching by television. Wrong speech. Well, the next part's the same anyway. My name is Christopher Fales, and I'm a self-diagnosed autist. I'm on the high-functioning end of the spectrum, what the DSM used to call Asperger's syndrome, but I've heard they've changed that since. Now, being self-diagnosed, I did not know I was autistic growing up. It took me long enough to realize I was different. And I didn't take any tests or see any professionals like you fine folks or anything like that, because I didn't really need them. In school, I was one of the smart kids, registered trademark. In fact, in elementary school, the teachers came and talked to my parents, and they said that there was a possibility I could skip a grade and work on more difficult work higher up. And so Mom and Dad thought about that and prayed about it. And what they believed God told them was just love him like he is. And so I stayed at the grade I was at and just went into the honors classes and so forth as I moved along, because I was still one of the smart kids. I didn't really try to be. I don't think a lot of the smart kids do try to get labeled that way. I just enjoy learning, and I learned real fast what sort of behavior the teachers liked out of their students, and so I did that, and I did well on the assignments, and so I got marked as a genius. Now, in addition to being one of the smart kids, I was one of the weird kids, trademark unregistered because that would defeat the purpose. But that was official. In 4th grade, a couple of my friends and I got together and branded ourselves the Weirdos. But we never did anything specifically for the purpose of being weird. We just didn't care that people thought we were. And for my part, I just knew I didn't want to be popular because I'd watched enough TV to know what usually happened to the popular kids. On the kids' shows, they generally turned out to be the villains, and on the news and the celebrity gossip that I didn't really watch, but it's everywhere. And they got so sick of having the public eye on them that they went out and did something monumentally stupid and then dropped off the radar for a while. I knew I didn't want that. I just knew that these are my friends and I enjoy hanging out with them, so I became one of the weird kids. And I still didn't know I was autistic at this point. Now, in 6th grade, the teachers went back and talked to my parents again, but this time the message was a little different. And they said that I was doing just fine at the level I was at, but that they were worried I wouldn't be able to keep up when I went to middle school and the classwork got harder and the social dynamics got more complicated and all of that. So Mom and Dad thought and prayed about that as well, and they decided that they didn't think I'd shown the 6th grade teachers everything I could do. So they made the decision to send me on to middle school and let me fail once, and then there would be resources available to help me. So I went on to middle school, and long story short, I never did fail once. I think like a lot of people, I have a way of living up or down to people's expectations of me. So I just adjusted myself for the expectations of middle school, and I did just fine. The only rough part was that middle school was around the time that teachers started wanting the students to stand up and speak out instead of sitting down and shutting up. And that I did not like because, first off, I don't like change, never have. Second off, sitting down and shutting up continues to work just fine for me. And third off, not only do I not like change, but I especially don't like when you change the rules once I've learned how to play the game. So I just continued playing the game by my rules, and I did just fine. Now, it was in high school that I first started suspecting that I was autistic. Because for a class, we had to do these presentations over people that had overcome great difficulty in order to accomplish something great. And my presentation was on Eric Weinmeier, the first legally blind man to climb Mount Everest. But there was another presentation. I forget who was being presented or who was doing the presenting, but the presentation was over an autist who had overcome their communication difficulties. And for these presentations, we were supposed to write down a sentence or two in our notes just so that we'd remember who this person was. And for that presentation, I wrote, I may be very minorly autistic. I wrote very minorly because to me, autism was still low-functioning autism with non-verbalism and not understanding emotions and the stereotypes, basically. But all the same, the manifestations of autism sounded awfully familiar. Fast forward to college, freshman year, another class, interpersonal communication, boring gen ed class, but beats the heck out of public speaking, which I already had to take in high school anyway to patch up one of my few academic weaknesses. Another set of presentations over elements of communication. And one of my friends does a presentation on autism, specifically her autistic friend and the difficulties he's faced. And once again, these manifestations start to sound awfully familiar. Social awkwardness? Yup. Obsessive need to have everything the same? Well, need is a strong word, but I sure hate change. And obsessive focus on certain topics. That's part of the secret to my memory. We remember what's significant to us, what catches our interest, and so I was able to adapt that and use it all through school such that I didn't need to study much for tests and things like that. And so I started thinking, maybe I'm on this autism spectrum. Over fall break, or more specifically on the drive back from fall break, I bring up this topic with my dad, and I tell him what I'm thinking. And he says that, yeah, he and Mom have suspected that as well. And my initial reaction is, well, that would have been nice to know. But then he goes on to explain that he and Mom didn't want to just slap the label on me and have that dictate how I acted. They wanted me to find the label myself if I so chose. So that's what I did. I took that conversation as confirmation that I was in fact on the autism spectrum, and I decided, all right, I'm autistic. Only people don't like when you say that because they think that you're saying that that's all you are. So I need to come up with a better label. And not only that, I need to come up with a label for Asperger's syndrome because there are no good labels for Asperger's syndrome. Mom said that she heard of Aspergian and Aspie, but Aspergian sounds like a space alien, and similarities aside in how we react with the so-called normal human culture, it just doesn't flow well. And Aspie's even worse because that sounds like a breakfast cereal. And so I'm pondering all this one day, hanging out at the campus library, when all of a sudden it dawns on me, I'm an autist. And it was one of those moments where it feels like light is shining down on you and everything suddenly makes sense, and the logical explanations behind it come a step behind. logical explanation being that there are all sorts of isms in philosophy and the arts and so forth, whose practitioners are ists, and so autism could be one of those, and I could be an autist. Now, once I realized I was an autist, all sorts of things started making sense in terms of why and how I do things. And there's a good example from my childhood that I've hung on to, and because I won't let it go, and also because it's such a good example. When I was really little, there were certain chores that I absolutely hated doing. Making my bed and cleaning my room came to mind. But even more than actually doing the chores, I hated being told that I'd done them well, that I'd done a good job on them. And I tried everything to get out of that part of it. Negative emotional reaction? Check. Avoidance of human contact after I've done it? Check. I even lied a couple of times and said I hadn't done it, but Mom and Dad saw through that because the work had been done and it likely wasn't the cleaning up fairies that did it, although that would have been nice. But what took me until college to realize was why I hated that so much. It was because Mom and Dad were expressing pleasure over something that brought me great displeasure. And that is not, at least to a child's mind, the act of a loving parent. But Mom and Dad have shown me in other ways that they do love me, so the logical conclusion is, what the heck? And that was all childishly simple, pun intended. Once I had the words for it, a whole lot of things made sense. I learned in college the definition of the term normal in physics class. Normal means perpendicular to the plane on which something acts, as in the normal force that acts on us so that gravity doesn't pull us all into the floor. But returning to the topic of autism, I learned from reading Temple Grandin that autists are very good at associative thought. We can take one topic and say that this is like that in this way, and that's like this in that way, until we've got a whole chain of associations between two topics that wouldn't seem to be related. And that is the other piece of my good memory, because in addition to the things that interest us, we remember the things that we work with, the things that we put into lists or make mnemonics for, or even things we repeat over and over, like I did with this speech in order to learn it. And so when we associate with things, we are working with them such that it's easier to remember them. And furthermore, we can then use the association as a shortcut between topics and arrive at a conclusion faster than someone else, which I think is the foundation of the autistic savant who seems extremely intelligent. In fact, I've heard a theory posed by my friend and fellow autist that says that autism is basically synonymous with genius, and that even in the case of the low-functioning autists, their brains are simply working too fast in order to put everything that they're thinking into words. While that theory would explain a few things, I hesitate to fully endorse it for two reasons. First off, I don't like to fart my own horn, by which I mean toot my own horn, but using a certain amount of context establishes my feelings on the matter. And second off, the whole point is that I don't know. I know that I'm intelligent, but intelligence is like autism in that the more I learn about it, the less sure I am of what exactly defines it, and therefore, the less sure I am of how much of it I have. And in terms of relative to other people, I have no idea because I've never been able to look at myself from somebody else's perspective. Most of the empathy that I have involves taking what somebody else is going through and associating it with something that I've been through in the past. Which brings me to one of the most important things that I've learned since learning I was an autist, the Narcissa Clause. I named the Narcissa Clause after an atheist whose work I had to read for another college class. The Narcissa Clause is simply this: obviousness is relative. Truth, in spite of what Narcissa wrote when it was convenient, is not relative, or at least it's not relative to our point of view. Our point of view is relative to the truth. And we have different experiences and perspectives, and so by definition, we can't see the whole truth. So what might be so obvious to me that I don't think I even need to mention it, somebody else might not see at all until I show them. Well, that brings me to the takeaway message, as much as I have one. I've learned that what is necessary is to interpret people according to what they are willing to show you, and to learn how they think, such that you can explain things to them in ways that they're going to understand. And that in turn will often make you rethink how you think about things, not necessarily decide that you don't think of them that way anymore, but they'll make you learn why you believe certain things, which will in turn allow you to better explain them. All right, who's first?
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I'm the oldest of 5.
Oh, wow. Well, siblings are pretty reckless, and they point out your flaws with no issues. So did any of your siblings ever point out maybe that you might, or allude to the idea that you had autism?
Well, they didn't mention it as autism. Looking back, I can see things that they pointed out that were part of autism, but I don't think they realized any more than I did.
Can you tell us more about the work you do in the laboratory? I was super intrigued when Morgan introduced that.
All right. I work for a company called Envigo, and what we do is we provide research models, we call them, which mostly means lab rats and mice. And we provide those to other researchers to test on. And we've got customers all over the nation. What I do specifically is I work with a breeder colony of rats, and mostly I clean cages and make sure they're all well fed.
Did having autism affect the type of jobs that were available to you?
That's a good question. I'm honestly not sure, because I don't tend to mention to prospective employers that I'm an autist, at least not right off. And since I am high functioning, it doesn't really affect my ability to work, unless perhaps I were in an industry with a lot of contact with people. I suppose before Envigo, I worked at PetSmart, and so I had to interact with customers a lot more. And I don't think it was autism that affected it, but I could have been better at customer service.
I was just curious as to what you like to do, like in your free time. Like, do you have any hobbies or activities you like to do when you're not at work?
And when I'm not at work, I'm mostly at home, and I like reading and playing computer games. I've also gotten into writing. I've written a few short stories. And I also like being out in nature, but I like doing that with people more.
Can you give us like an example of that? Like what's something that you associate that's different?
I suppose an easy example would be if you heard somebody say something that sounded like a a song lyric that you knew, and then that song started playing in your head. That would be a good way to think of it. When I'm trying to explain something, I'll naturally go to metaphors or similes in order to explain it. And that also works according to associative thought. And the way Temple Grandin described it in her book was that she could just hear a noun like butterfly, and she'd think of specific things like the butterflies in her parents' garden growing up, or an ornament in the shape of a butterfly, and then she might keep thinking of butterflies, or she might start thinking of ornaments, and then maybe from there go to Christmas trees, because those have ornaments on them, and that sort of association.
Do you feel like that doubt has helped make you successful in where you are now today, just showing people that you can do it and giving you like the drive?
Well, yes and no. That instance specifically, I was not as involved in the process. Mom and Dad told me about that later on, but in terms of people doubting me, I always have had a bit of an independent streak, and I do try to not let inability to do something stop me from doing it, hence this speech.